Welcome back, everybody, and this is Bryan Rector alongside my guy, who I won't introduce just yet, but I will tell you this, folks. Today marks episode 19 of Confluence World Pod, and I'm telling you what, every time we get a new episode up and every time we're posting the clips, I'm two things. One, I'm appreciative of the amount of support we're getting. And I've seen that the Instagram account has grown quite a bit, which I love, and I'm thankful for. And I've seen that people are interested, which has been cool, around Michigan State and at other universities as well. I know one of the ones we released recently, 2 episodes ago, was with Ashley Edmiston, who plays volleyball down in Texas at Abilene Christian. And so it's been super cool to kind of see how that works, how word of mouth is, right? How you tell a story and then you highlight the keys to the story, and then people can relate and resonate, repost, connect, however you want to describe that. But I say that because I would love if we continue to find ways to do that very thing of connecting and reposting and liking and doing all that stuff. That's very good. And so let's get right into it. Episode 19 with Tone Postell, who is the second one who I've been able to speak to from the cross country and track and field teams here at Michigan State. And we got connected actually, which is another crazy story or like crazy connection through Big Ten Student U. Yeah. And so that's something I want to ask you about here in a minute. But the first one, who we were talking about off camera, was Lexi Alston, who ironically is in the BTN Student U program as well. And so it's kind of this weird connection, like triangle thing. But I was super glad. Like, I ran into Tone just last week at gymnastics. I think you were probably at Jenison doing a workout or something, right?
No, I was there watching.
Oh, okay, cool. And yeah, I was coming down the stairs and I see Tone and I go, wait a second, man, what if we did a show together? That would be sweet. And so here we are. So thank you so much for being here. And I really appreciate the fact that you were willing to do it. And where I want to start is, I know that the season that you've had to this point has been, you told me just earlier, not exactly how you would have preferred it to go, or maybe not exactly according to the plan that you had. Yeah. But talk to me a little bit about that, because I know there have been a few PRs that have come, and there have been a few top 5 finishes and some top 3s and some event wins. Like, amongst all of that, how do you feel about where you're at and what the momentum is like when you're moving into the next part of the season?
Yeah. Me personally, I don't feel like my season was up to par as what it should have been compared to my last season. But it still was some good in there. There was some good and bad I can take from it. Like my 60 meters just wasn't there this year. I got together the very last meet at Big Tens, but still just wasn't up to par of what I know I can do. My 200 meters, however, I PR'd, I want to say 3 times for indoor times. So I'm really excited to get out there and run that outdoor. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think, like, whenever I hear about times that are being had and being, put out there at the different meets, like, I'm so intrigued is, like, what are the factors that go into having a significant change in time, like each meet that you try and go out and keep raising the bar? Like, how difficult is it to keep improving and keep pushing forward?
It's just really about where you are and how you're feeling. Like, your body gotta be right, training got to be on point, and you just gotta have a connection with your mind and body. And I feel like coming into this season, because at the end of my outdoor season last year, I was dealing with a groin injury, and I was just coming back for fall, and I wasn't really running. We kind of did different training. So last year I was a lot of speed training. This year is a lot of conditioning. So my 60 just wasn't there. But on the back end, my 200 looked a lot better.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. And, the other thing that I just heard you say, which makes sense in my mind, even though I really hadn't thought about it that way, is when you train a certain way, that will influence one of the races or like a couple of the events, but maybe not all of them.
Right.
And so you try and negotiate and kind of like switch that on whenever you get to it.
Right.
So that's interesting to me. But I was wondering is like, because you're from Michigan, right, originally in Battle Creek. And then what I just heard, which I want to get into, is that you moved and were somewhere else for growing up. So in that, I was wondering is like, man, what was it like for you growing up? And what is your family situation like? And what did it mean to you to move from Michigan down to another location and then back to Michigan?
Okay. So I was born in Battle Creek. I moved to Stone Mountain, Georgia, when I was probably 2 or 3 years old. It was just me, my mom, and my sister. Me and my sister ended up moving back around my 7th grade year, just to be around family. That's where most of my family is in Michigan. Like my family is, most families are like, they have their grandparents, cousins, aunts, cousins, things like that. But our family is kind of like more so like we're all like brothers and sisters, like we're super close. So I moved up here to be closer to my god cousins because there wasn't a lot of male figures that was down in Georgia with me. So yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. No, I think like when I was doing a little bit of research on you just through social media and such, that's certainly something that comes through is how close you are to your family.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciated seeing that. But I was wondering if you would, talk about like where did the affinity for being in athletics and where did the love for track come from amongst all of that growing up?
So I just been a competitor since I've been younger. Just being around a bunch of kids and stuff like that. I always wanted to be the best. Me and my cousins, we played basketball a lot, and I never like to lose. I just don't like to lose. I don't know why, but it just made me really competitive. So I wouldn't say I just fell in love with track. Track was just another sport that I just didn't like to lose in. Just something I participated in. Because in high school I was a 3-sport athlete. I wrestled, ran track, and played football. And all 3 sports, I just excelled, and now I'm here.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it makes a little bit more sense now after hearing how you were drawn to come back to Michigan because of the certain figures in your life. But what was your recruitment like? And how did it end up that you were back to the hometown Michigan State Spartans?
Yeah, so originally I wanted to go play football instead of run track. But I was just getting D2 offers, D3 offers. And then I had a really good senior and junior year for track. And I got a letter in the mail from Michigan State to come run track. It wasn't an offer or anything like that. It was just like an interest letter. So I filled out the form, whatever. And then I kept in contact with the sprints coach, Coach Yolanda Johnson. But my last 2 choices came down to Michigan State and Grand Valley. And Grand Valley, they was waiting to offer me to see what I was going to do. And I had a conversation with Coach Joe, and she just asked me, was I still interested? And I said, yeah. And thinking about it, it's the Big Ten. I'm a competitor. I want to compete against the best of the best. So yeah, undoubtedly. Because GV, and I'm from the West Coast, so I'm still learning a little bit about what happens around here. But GV's Division II, right? Yeah.
But one of the premier Division II programs.
Yeah, they was one of the top in the nation.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I'd always heard. And like I know that their facilities are quite good for being at the second level and all that. So that makes sense. But yeah, I think I can resonate with that. And I think a lot of people who are listening will be able to as well. Is like when you get the opportunity to go either to the highest level or one that's a really high level, but not the Big Ten, right? That's kind of a cut and dry choice of like, let me go to where I know I'm going to be pushed.
Right.
And so what has that been like year over year since you've been here? Because I know you have graduated from undergrad and you're pursuing masters, which is super cool. I love that. Shout out education. I mean, come on, that's fantastic. But it's like, man, when you came in, what are some of the ways that you've grown and changed in your mentality over the couple of years and tried to level up?
I feel like when I first came in, I was very raw. Didn't really know much about the sport. Just kind of just relied on my natural abilities. But Coach O, she's been phenomenal. She's the best coach I ever had in my life. And she's very experienced. I believe she's one of the first, if not the first, Gatorade athletes ever. So yeah, she has a nice background and knows what she's talking about. But I came from a background where I just was doing whatever I wanted to, just running basically. So it was kind of hard for me to trust her at first. I wouldn't say I started to trust her until maybe last year, but once I started to, I really started seeing huge differences. Maybe the year that I scored at Big Tens was, I want to say 2020.
Okay.
I think I scored off of her giving me one cue, and I really listened to it and just went with it and trusted myself. So yeah.
Yeah, I think I love what you just said. And actually, that's something unique that I really hadn't heard before from anyone who's come on the show, is like it took a minute to trust in what I was being told. I was curious to know, is like, man, was there any moment that you can point at that was like, oh yeah, that I need to trust, and now we're locked in, we're ready to go?
So last year, season opener was at Grand Valley. And I had a huge PR in the 60. It was super close to our school record, and from that point, I was like, I know I need to listen to you from now on. We had that conversation as soon as I finished the race. She was like, I bet you're gonna start listening to me now. And sure enough, that started our journey for me, trusting her and listening to her plans.
Okay. Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's what it takes, is it takes that understanding of like, you're here to help me, man. And whatever you say, if I do see progress and do utilize it and move forward, then that's a catalyst for what's to come. So I like that a lot. That's really good. But I was curious, like, man, you just spoke to how important it is to listen to your coach and identify what she's saying and figuring out how to use it to your best advantage. But I also know that you have a significant relationship with your faith. And so I was wondering how those two things relate and how there's that trust there with your relationship with Jesus as well.
Yeah, so growing up, I've always been in church. My granny, because that's who I stayed with once I moved back to Michigan, it was a rule that we had to go to church. But as I got older, I started going to a different church, but it was my choice. Like I started going. We had a youth program there, and I really liked it. I really enjoyed it. So I really always been a faithful type of guy. But once I got to college, I didn't have a church home, and I wasn't really familiar with AI or anything like that yet. So I kind of fell off. And then I just hit a rock bottom. And I knew it was because I wasn't being consistent with my faith. And I started to pray more, going to AIA, talking to a lot of different people, getting different advice. And I talked to my coach, and we talked about God and how I have to trust him to learn how to trust her. And so that became one of my prayers, to just teach me how to trust and let go, and to just trust that I can't do it all by myself.
So would you say that, or how do I want to phrase this? When you describe that you would hit a rock bottom, so to say, would you say, like, what different avenues was that in? Was that in your physical strength? Was that in your ability to run? Was that mentally? Was that spiritually? Like, where did that bottom effect happen in your life?
I just feel like everything was just crashing down in my life. Just mentally, I was just down. My confidence was down. I I just wasn't consistent with anything. It just everything in my life was just changing, and I wasn't prepared for it.
Okay. Yeah, and I'm so glad we're having this conversation and that I'm understanding that, because when once again, coming back to my research, the debunking of the Instagram account is that you over time have posted quite a lot about your physical like strength regimens and you're working out and you're connecting to your body in that way.
Yeah.
And so I was wondering is like, where does that drive and desire come from to be as close to perfect as you can get in the way of physical health?
We talk about when just lifting and
yeah.
So I had 2 coaches in high school who played football overseas, and they came to Battle Creek, came back to Battle Creek from overseas. I want to say my sophomore year, at the end of my sophomore year, and when I started working out with them, they started really putting me through real workout plans and things like that, and I just seen huge differences, and I think that's a key reason why I had better seasons my junior and senior year for all sports, because I was physically stronger, and they put me through tough times where it made me uncomfortable, so I grew.
Okay. Yeah. That I'm glad you ended that way, because it takes being uncomfortable to see that growth.
Right.
And I think too, like one of the things that really impresses me about what I've been seeing from you on an outward perspective is that you value your sport and your health and the word and school, right? And so it's that multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
I was wondering is like, what does it take to be able to excel in the classroom and on the track and in these different avenues of life from you as a student athlete?
You just gotta be disciplined. You gotta have discipline, time management. Yeah, just be disciplined. That's the main thing is you have to be disciplined. You gotta be willing and be trusting that you can get it done.
Yeah, certainly. And I think, the unique thing about Michigan State is that it's a really good academic institution,
right,
as well as there are quite a few tremendous athletic teams as well. And I think also on like this new era of NIL stuff and the excitement around being able to build your brand, there's something that is an event that has kind of been spurred on, or 2 actually, which are like the NIL nights or whatever you want to call those, galas maybe, and then the academic ones as well.
Yeah.
And I know that those are events that you've been able to attend. Right. So I guess the question in that is like, now that you know that this is what it takes, and I've finished a degree and I'm working towards masters, and now we're on the forefront of NIL, what is it like to have those type of events as a benefit to doing all that you do?
It's really just a blessing. It's nice to have those type of nights, just to take a break from everything, school, practice, the season, just everything. Just have like a fun time. You get to invite your family to some of the events, so it's just nice being around, just having a good time with the other athletes.
Yeah, and alongside that, which I think I won't say I was like expecting you to say something, but that feels about right. Is that it would be good to have a break. But in that, and like knowing that Michigan State prioritizes that way of building the community and connecting people, what would you say, and what are your feelings on the Michigan State community and the organizations you've gotten involved with here, and how has all that gone throughout the course of your time?
Yeah, so my freshman year, I kind of wasn't feeling the college life. I was really homesick, but as I started to get out there more and just start meeting new people, I started realizing everybody's really friendly here. It's really like a Spartan family, like when they say it. I really feel like I have a second home here. I have a second family here, and I wouldn't change my experience for the world.
I want to go shout out here. Just one little quick shout out is, Matt McCulloch because Matt, our guy at BTN Student U, he's somebody I feel like really builds that environment, especially within the media programs, of course, and being involved with Student U and the production of all the games that we have at campus. So how did that come about, that you were introduced to him and started working for Big Time?
Yeah. So my undergrad was advertising. I was looking for an internship within that field or something like it. And I was talking to Angela. She's somebody who just helps with finding internships and just helping the athletes. And she connected me with Matt. And so I texted him and we had a conversation on the phone with me, him, and Angela. And he said he'd be able to get me in for an internship. And since they just took off from there. And I finished up last year, the internship, but I still keep in contact with him. I still speak to him when I see him and stuff like that. So,
yeah. And I know that he appreciates that. I can say confidently because I told him right after we ran into each other at gymnastics, I said, hey, by the way, did you just see Tone walk by? And he goes, no, I didn't. But he was like, I love Tone. That's my guy. So I had to ask you that because he asked. He said, he was like, that's super cool that you just ran into him and did all that. But no, I'm glad that you got to do that. And I'm glad that we got to meet during that time. That was cool. But what were some of the things that you took away from that experience of being involved in a different way of media broadcasting?
I thought it was really cool just like seeing the back end of what you see on TV. So like the switches of the camera views, how to control the camera, switch up the focus, or the color of the camera, things like that. Just the work it takes to actually put out a production like that. So like now when I watch TV, I just kind of think of it differently. I'm like, dang, they did this, that. How did they do this? Like, things like that. So.
Yeah, I think like that's something, I'm glad you said that because that's exactly how I feel is I'll be watching and go, man, either like that camera guy sucks or like, or like, whoa, that's pretty good. Or like, geez, you know, that level to even get to the time where you're on a ESPN or a Fox, that's like a major step up. But that's super cool. And I'm glad that, you know, you got to experience that. And like, I think it's awesome that you've been able to be an athlete, but as well maximize your time in these other ways of school and of internship and jobs. Because I know you just said you came from work today, which I thought was cool also. But I guess like because you finished advertising, like what inspired you to go into that field?
Just talking to my advisor at the time, Ashley, she just kind of was telling me about it and just was telling me that it's something that I can be creative and I can express myself and it's not too difficult or anything like that. It's just, you just gotta put in the time. And so I took a chance and went into it and I really enjoyed it. Good. Have you given any thought to what it will look like post-grad for you? Have you started to plan about that? Or? So right now I'm just thinking about, I know I want to coach. I know I want to go out there and coach and try to instill the knowledge that I know into younger kids. But I also want to use my undergrad degree in some type of way. So I've been in contact with one of my old teammates who's in the field of advertising right now. And we've just been kind of talking about getting together and he's been showing me some things and things like that.
Okay, awesome. Man, I love that. And like, especially too, when we were talking about the family culture and the environment, like the willingness of one of your teammates to reciprocate and say like, hey, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah, definitely.
I love hearing that. That's awesome. And I think that'll be like even a great thing going forward of anybody who you knew or have come across will be presumably willing to do that and share. So I like that too. That's sweet. What would you say, do you have like a dream kind of situation that you're looking to go into, like whether it be a job or like a location you want to go, or what is something that you're kind of aiming at if you are at all when you leave here?
Just going somewhere warm.
Okay. Yeah.
Get out of Michigan, go somewhere warm. I do want to coach at a higher level. So maybe like a high-end high school or college level. But yeah, that's pretty much right now.
And I haven't been surprised, I'll say, but I've appreciated the amount of people who I've spoken to on the podcast who I know all of you are listening to this saying, wait, did he say coaching again? And like, yeah, man, is the amount of athletes at the level of Michigan State or wherever it is who are aiming to give back in that way.
Yeah.
Why would you say that is important to you as you move forward, the giving back and the sharing of knowledge?
Just because of how I grew up, kind of had to do a lot of things by myself until I figured out who was able to actually help me in certain ways. But just want to be there for an athlete who really want to give it their all in their sport, and because I know what it takes now that I've been in this seat. And some kids might not know what it takes, and they just might need that guidance. And yeah.
What are some of the, like, one or two of the key things that you've learned that you feel like you would have benefited from, or maybe wish you knew when you were first getting into the swing of being a high level athlete?
Just the basics. Like when I said I was just running in high school, I was really just running. I didn't know nothing about track. I just was doing my own thing. So yeah, just like the basics of it, just basic drills, basic techniques. Then something else will be the importance of your connection with your coaches. Because if you don't have that connection with your coach, then typically not going to work out. You're probably not going to be performing at your best. Your coach is probably going to be frustrated with you. But if you all have that connection, then you can get things done.
And I know, like, for track and field particularly, there's a really big team, just a lot of people. And so what is that like to try and connect with them and be a leader within the program and manage that many different personalities and people doing their own thing?
So the way our team is set up, like for practices and things like that, we have our different event groups. Typically we spend most of our time with our event group, but when we do come together, our coach is always stressing, like, make sure you go out your way, go speak to somebody else, get to know another one of your teammates, things like that. And the ways they kind of force us to do that is, like, when we go travel somewhere, they'll room us with somebody else that's not part of our event group, or when we go to camp, they'll make us do team bonding, things like that. So, but I mean, I feel like I do a pretty good job of it. I always speak to my other teammates. I feel like I know a lot of people on my team, and a lot of people know me, and I kind of keep conversations going and make sure I speak to them.
Yeah. I think, like, it's interesting to me that you said that, because sometimes, like, to make an impact, that's all it takes is just reaching out.
Right.
And just, as you said, which I loved, keeping the conversation going.
Right.
And ensuring that as soon as it stops, that, I'll call it, like, tensions or whatever you want to say can arise, and, like, problems stem from that. So I enjoy hearing that. But have you enjoyed the piece to the student athlete experience that allows you to, like, travel and go to new schools, and what is that like? Because I know the time management piece would be really tough.
Yeah.
But what would you say about that, being able to move around?
So coming in, one of the things I looked forward to the most was traveling. I want to go out and see new things and things like that. But it turns out that's kind of my least favorite is to travel. Not necessarily saying like going to different meets is what I don't like. It's just I like to sleep in my own bed. I like to be in my own space.
Okay.
But it's just the traveling part that's I don't like. But going to different places, going to see new things, competing against different people I love, that's fun. So.
Do you have people in the track community around, like, the Big Ten or even the country that you're connected with and that you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like one of my friends, He came from Maryland. He transferred from Maryland and he goes to Texas Tech now. He's a hurdler named Caleb Dean.
Okay.
He just won nationals.
Wow.
Wow. Yeah, and a few other people from different schools in the Big Ten. One of my friends, he actually used to go to East Lansing. He ran for Arizona State and finished up at Ohio State. So he was a hurdler too. So
yeah, wow, that's sweet. And I feel like, that's kind of what tends to happen, not only just at Michigan State, but around the country too, is like, this place is such a big place and there are so many bright lights and there are so many people, over 50,000. And like in the national community, it can be very similar, but it kind of shrinks after you've competed against each other and after you are like have grown up together maybe, or however that shakes out. But that's super cool. Yeah, I like that a lot. What are you somebody who likes to set goals with your performance, or how do you kind of break down the different accomplishments you want to have?
So at first I used to kind of set goals to where like the things that I wanted to accomplish. Now I kind of just set like a plan, kind of set like a plan on how I'm gonna do that, or little tiny goals to get to the big goal that I want to accomplish.
And this, I think, could make for a really interesting question and answer, which I'm excited to hear from you, frankly. But like, what happens if things don't go according to the plan that you put together for you?
You just gotta let it go and move on from it. Something that I used to do a lot was just kind of dwell on my shortcomings. And that's something I talked to my coach about, and she just told me you just gotta learn how to let it go and move on from it and continue to move forward. So that's what I've been working on doing. I haven't got it down pat yet, but I definitely made headway into it. So
yeah. And I think that's one of those where, as people, we're constantly evolving and changing and finding new mindsets and ways to improve. And that's something that maybe, as hard as it is to hear, we're not meant to have it mastered down, right? Because then where are we growing to, right? So I'm intrigued to hear you say that. But what are some of the things that you pray about often and that are kind of seated close to your heart that you like to give up and share in your personal time with God?
Just to trust His plan for me. I know sometimes I get frustrated if things don't go my way, but I just always look back and think of it. It's not my life to control. It's His. He created me. He has a plan for me. I have a purpose, and I just my job is to figure it out. The way to figure it out is by staying connected to Him, communicating with Him, and just trying to do the right things on a daily basis.
Yeah. And I think like I'm touched by what you just said about communicating with Him and communing and sharing. But I say that because one thing we touched on a little bit ago, but I wanted to kind of go back to, is the fact that you do share and you are outward about your mentality and your relationship with Him. I was wondering, is that something that translates into your team? Do you have spiritual conversations at all, or how does that go?
So some of my teammates that goes to AIA, we have conversations. Sometimes we have Bible study. I know the girls team, they have Bible study. I believe we have one. I just don't have the time to go to it. Usually around season time, I get too busy to go to AIA. But during the fall semester, that's when I'm really into it and going every day type of thing. But I talk to a lot of my close friends about God a lot. So
have you been able to, and I know I just keep kind of hitting you with these one-liners, but I'm just very interested by this concept of being connected to the different people and that are at Michigan State and in the athletic community as well. Like, do you have connection to other teams through AIA, or what would you say that's like, where you're being able to talk to other sports and to other people?
I mean, AI is another way where you can network with different teams. But I feel like most of my networking just come from just going out with friends and just seeing new people, talking to new people. Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. I do. That makes sense. I know off camera we were talking about some of the people who are influential in connecting with others. But, something that you have said a few times, which I've heard and I've been like waiting to ask this question is when you get super busy and you kind of run out of time to do some things, like what are some of the ways that you can get away from the grind of continuing to work? How do you enjoy any free time that you might get?
Just so for me, I have really small bubbles of free time that I have. I just take advantage of them. So if I like say for instance we don't have practice, I'm gonna go home, finish some schoolwork, and just relax. Uh, Sometimes I go home to just see my family because they 45 minutes away from here. Um, you know, things like that. I feel like that's important to just relax and clear your mind from everything that's stressing you out.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What would you say, what would it take to make your time in college complete? Or if you have an idea of things that you want to do before you leave, what are some of those that you maybe haven't done to this point?
Um, I feel like I lived the college experience. I've done a lot of things. I'm just trying to finish up and get out of here.
Okay. So
Yeah.
so would you say I hear that and I think like that makes sense to me too. I'm kind of thinking like, man, I'm we talked about off camera. Like I'm doing 1 degree in HR and that'll be done or no, communication will be done this year, but I can't leave because we got another one to get through the full 4 years. So I can completely relate when you said excited to get out and go. What excites you about being able to finish and get off into the world doing what you want to do?
Just first having time to do things that I don't have time to do now. Just experiencing new things and not having kind of like a leash. I feel like I have to tell a lot of people, no, I can't do that. I got practice or I got to meet or I got school, I got work, things like that. I know like work will always be there, but definitely other factors will be freed up. So I have a lot more free time to experience new things and try out new things.
Okay. Would you say that you have like a bucket list of things you want to do?
Not yet.
Okay.
I plan on creating one though.
Okay. Yeah.
I was just talking to somebody about that, but I do plan on making a bucket list pretty soon. But yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know what we said right before we were getting going here was that you were thinking about with a cousin of yours starting a podcast of your own, which I love, by the way, because we're doing a show here and my man is going off to level up in that way.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you wouldn't mind talking about, how that came about.
So every time we link up, we kind of just have like deep conversations, and then this when I was in undergrad still, I was getting used to working with cameras and things like that. I was just brought it out like, bro, we should like make a podcast one day. He was like, we should, and then later on, we started talking about moving in together because he's supposed to be going to law school, and I told him I'd move with him wherever he goes, just to have that support system with him. And we just talked about, and then it'd be a great idea for us to actually start that podcast that we run up. So,
okay. Yeah. Wow. I like that. I like that. There's a guy who I know who I need to give another shout out here. Stanton Ramel, who is offensive lineman here at Michigan State, but he too has a podcast that has been gaining a lot of traction. So shout out my guy Stanton. And man, I love that. And I'm excited to see kind of where things go.
Yeah.
But hey, thank you so much for being here and because I know like it's become amply clear that you're always doing something and working on a project and traveling and doing school and training. So I love and I respect and I appreciate the fact that you took the time out of your day to stop by.
Yeah, no problem.
And it means a lot to me.
Thank you.
And before we get out of here, I was wondering is like, how can people, if you want to let them connect with you, how can people do that? Can they follow you anywhere? What can they do?
Just follow my Instagram. It's Tone, Tone, Postell, Postell 3.
Great. Absolutely. And the other thing, folks, is that when we get live on YouTube, one of the things that I've been doing is I'll do kind of linking of the handle or whatever, you know, in the content. So we'll figure that out. We'll make sure they know and how to direct them. But thank you again. And folks, that will do it for us on Confluence World Podcast, episode 19, which I was reading something the other day, which was that, you know, what was it? It was 90% of all podcasts that are ever created only get to 3 episodes. And I was like, wow, that's crazy.
That is crazy.
I never would have thought that. Like, people are done after 3.
That's crazy.
And you are in the top 1% of podcasts if you get to episode 20. And we're at 19 right now, and we just got to go. So, hey, that's it. We're almost there, and appreciate the support and appreciate you all tuning in to hear what my man Tone had to say about all matters related to faith, related to athletics, related to community, being active in that, and really interesting conversation. And I'm so thankful that we've been able to have all these. But with that being said, have a great day, everybody, and thank you so much. Cool.
Thank you.
Man, there we go.